Right, hi guys. Today we're going to do a quick revision session of a poem called First Love by John Clare. As the title suggests, this is a poem about the first time this person fell in love. Now what we need to understand here is that it's the first time he's ever felt these emotions before. So he's quite shocked, he's quite surprised by them. The language that's used is quite awkward, it's quite painful, and essentially it's trying to embody his feelings, the fact that he's trying to come to terms with how he feels. Now this is quite a real event. It's actually a poem about a person who John Clare actually fell in love with when he was younger, called Mary Joyce. And essentially the reader is really instantly confronted by the fact that this boy, he doesn't understand these feelings. And this woman, she doesn't really reciprocate them. So it's quite an uneven relationship, and ultimately it ends in pain. Right, when we have a look at the first stanza, you'll notice that straight away it starts very, very plosively, very, very dramatically. I never was struck before that hour. And you'll notice here that the language is quite violent, it's quite aggressive. Pick out certain words like struck and stole. This is a poem about love, right? But the language, look at it, it's essentially pointing to the fact that she is stealing his emotions, that he's not in control of it. As we keep going, the second line, with love so sudden and so sweet. Now you notice here the really sibilant sounds, repetition of the letter S, makes it sound like whispering, which again is something we associate with love and affection. But here it's not so much. As we keep going, the third line, her face it blossomed like a sweet flower. Okay? The language to do with flowers and nature is all to do with kind of growing up, ripening to perfection. So he's looking at her face and essentially commenting on how beautiful she is. If you look down on the fifth line, my face turned pale as deadly pale. So here we're getting a real contrast between her face, which is blooming and colourful, and his face, which is completely pale and passive, like he's completely shocked by his emotions. This is quite an important part. If you look on the sixth line, my legs refuse to walk away. And what we get consistently throughout the whole poem is this feeling that he is paralysed by love, that he's so shocked by his emotions that he doesn't really understand what's happening, that he can't move. It's taken over his body. And this final word here, when he talks about my life and all seem turned to clay, it's quite an important reference because essentially clay is important because it's something which is malleable, it's something which can be moulded. Usually, before this happened, he was confident, he was happy in himself, but now it's all clay, it can be moved around, it can be shifted. So it really epitomises his uncertainty. Right, as we move on to stanza 2, you'll see how his face has changed from something which is pale to something which is quite red. All the blood rushes to his face, so he's blushing. As he keeps going, it took my eyesight quite away, and it seemed midnight at noonday. Again, like before, like his legs wouldn't walk away, we're seeing that he's being blinded by love, that love is taking over his body. We're seeing all these different parts of his body, his eyes, his legs are all kind of being dislocated, they're being moved around. So it's like he's there physically, but he can't really control his body. You'll notice that the trees and the bushes around the place, so he's talking about the nature. He can't appreciate the nature because he's so overtaken by this love. It's blinding him to all that surrounds him apart from this one girl. Words from my eyes did start. So it's a real kind of confused line which shows the fact that he can't control his emotions. Look at the last line, and blood burnt round my heart. Okay. What we've got here is a real contrast of two different colours. So you've got the blood, which is obviously red, and the burnt, which is black. Phrase, saw so sweet a face. And again, that sibilance, it makes it sound like whispering. But the last two lines are probably the most important ones about the whole poem. It talks about how my heart has found its dwelling place and can return no more. So these emphatic two last lines, they show his morbid realisation, the fact that he realises, now that he's fallen in love for the first time, his life can never be the same again. He's lost his innocence. He has transformed into this new person. Okay? What we really need to realise is that this man is being rejected by his first love. So these feelings are going to seem even more exaggerated. And when we look at the structure of the poem, last slide, we'll see that although the rhyme scheme is alternate, it's A, B, C, D, the rhythm is constantly changing. And when you're writing an exam, you can really pick this apart even more. And you can consider how this uneven rhythm, which changes from tetrameter to trimeter to a mixture of the two throughout the whole stanzas, maybe represents his own uncertainty. And that's what I really want you to get across today, is the fact that this poem, it epitomises his realisation, the moment he realises he's fallen in love, and the effects it has on his body, both physically and also psychologically. He is completely trapped by his love for this woman.